to do a quick intro of the panel. Michelle Flowerman, I'm with Unilever. I lead new product innovation in our food group.
I'm Sandro, Roco, founder and CEO of Sanzo, and we're the first Asian-inspired sparkling water.
Hi, I'm Breezy Griffith. I'm the CEO and founder of SkinnyDipped, and we're all about making snacks that empower you and make you feel great.
I'm Carolyn, Batyske, co-founder and COO of Tiny Organics, a baby and toddler food company teaching children to learn to love vegetables.
Gabi Lewis, founder of Magic Spoon. We make high-protein, low-sugar breakfast cereal that tastes just like your childhood favorites.
Ben Van Leeuwen, founder, CEO of Van Leeuwen Ice Cream. We make the highest fat, highest calorie ice cream on the market that makes you feel good. You can get it in our ice cream shops all over the country and in grocery stores.
Our anchor. Ben's our anchor.
Van Leeuwen. So I was just telling Ben this story that 2 days ago, there's this great trick. If there's a long line at Van Leeuwen, at the scoop shops, you can actually skip the line if you buy a full pint instead of just a scoop, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, preferably like 6 pints for $80 or whatever it costs now.
Brilliant marketing. So I'd like to start with just first recognizing this amazing panel. And when you have an idea, sometimes it's not just made overnight. You know, you look at these brands and you think, oh, they just created some of these ideas and, you know, it got them successful all of a sudden. But there's never really a straight line to success. Can you tell us about the inkling of the idea for your brand or your business? And then when did you realize you were really on to something?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually started my brand not too far away from here in Long Island City. And interestingly enough, I met our now Whole Foods buyer who manages the Northeast region at this event 4 years ago, right before COVID. So it's kind of an interesting coming full circle. I also got rejected on the spot by four VCs. So it's really all coming full circle being back here today. But for me, starting Sanzo, if folks aren't aware, this is us. We're sold now at every Whole Foods nationwide. But the initial spark for the idea was I was growing to just really become a lot more in tune with my Asian American identity. This is in 2018 when Crazy Rich Asians became the #1 film at the box office. And since then, we've seen so many commercial successes from prominent Asian creatives across TV, film, and music, most especially Everything Everywhere All at Once, which just won 7 Academy Awards, and just the rise also of K-pop and whatnot. Can folks hear me? Am I okay? Cool. Sorry.
Okay. Should we turn up the volume?
All right, I can talk even louder. I just don't want to blast everyone. Hold the mic here. Okay, cool. And so that one really was my spark. Was when I walked down grocery aisles, and saw the shelves. I saw no brands that really represented the cultures and the flavors that I had grown up with. And so that really was the spark for the brand of Sanzo. And so like you said, we've been going at it now it'll be 4 years officially in July. And honestly, feel like we're just still getting started.
So I started SkinnyDipped together with my mom. As a family, we have a deep love for delicious and also healthy food. We believe those things can coexist. And so for us, we always had this kind of inherent deep-seated belief in what we were doing from day one. I think sometimes it's a dangerous game to play as an entrepreneur, to look for outside validation, but rather that you really need to believe in what you're doing, and we did. So the first couple years for us were just head down, and I think we really didn't see the progress that we were making, and it wasn't until Target took us chain-wide very early in kind of the brand's evolution that we were like, oh wait, we have something here. People love what we're doing. It's not just us. And so I think there were points of validation for us as we, grew the brand. But I will say that from the very early days, I just think that that deep belief in what you're doing serves you so well.
We had a fun experience early days when we were at the beginnings of Idea. We sent an email out to the Park Slope parents group, and in Brooklyn, there's a bunch of kids, babies specifically in Park Slope. My co-founder and I brought food into the park, and hundreds of parents came and picked up food from strangers in the middle of summer in unmarked packaging and fed it to their babies. So it was proof to us early on that we had definitely a market need for what we were making.
So I grew up, like most people, loving breakfast cereal. And when I was a little bit older, I realized that it's all terrible for you, full of sugar, carbs, just a box of junk, basically. And so we started asking people in the industry, why has nobody tried to reinvent breakfast cereal for the modern consumer? And nobody gave us a very satisfying answer. They'd say, well, Kellogg's and Mills control the shelves, you'd never get on there. Or they'd say, nobody will ever pay more than $2 for a box of cereal. We knew that if we created the right brand and the right products, we could get past both of those hurdles. So we built a brand and a product that basically reminds you of your favorite childhood breakfast cereals, more protein, less sugar, less carbs. We launched direct to consumer in 2019, and we were, I think, struck on the first day through the influencers that we partnered with. We'd worked with these influencers in our prior business, and we'd actually seen for influencer A, if they promoted our last product, which was a protein bar, it generated a certain amount of sales. With this new business, we were able to see that the same influencer generated maybe 5-6 times as many sales, just because of the product market fit of this cereal. And so that for us was sort of the moment that we realized we were onto something and scaled from there.
So we sell a commodity which is sugar mixed with fat. I'm serious, frozen and spun. It triggers something in your brain because sugar and fat are very scarce in nature, and we have not evolved to taste that those are no longer scarce. So triggers something that says, I want this. So we sell commodities. We, not in a strategic way, but 15, 16 years ago said, there's a little hole here where you call it premiumization now, where you could do this sugar and fat, spun, frozen, with pistachios from Bronte, Sicily, with chocolate from Los Ancones plantation in the Dominican Republic, made in France by Michel Cazelle, with Tahitian vanilla beans that are aged in vodka and oak barrels. And we thought, okay, this could work, right? We're going to take this thing that everybody likes, right? It works. I think these guys are all different because you did very innovative products. I don't feel like we innovated at all. I think we just took something, premiumized it, sort of much simpler, much easier, less impressive in that way. We built an ice cream truck with $30,000 that we raised from friends and family. Another $30,000 was to do the first run of ice cream. I was 23 years old. I wasn't freaking out until the first day. We drove the truck literally right here. We parked on Canal Street. We had never sold a single scoop of ice cream, and it was a yellow truck. There were botanical drawings of every flavor. So the vanilla orchid, the strawberry plant, the hazelnut tree for the gianduja. And it was a really pretty truck. It looked nice, and the ice cream was pretty good, even better now. And we parked the truck on Canal Street. We opened the window. We put our homemade wooden counter out, and there were like hundreds of people walking by every 2 minutes. This is Canal Street, June 20th, 2008, and not a single person came up to the truck. After 30 minutes, we hadn't sold a single ice cream. So at this point, I've recreated this memory, but for the story, I like to say at this point, I was like, okay, we're fucked. This was a shitty idea. My sister who worked at Goldman Sachs was right. I should have just gotten a normal job. And we said, let's try one more spot before we put the truck back on eBay to sell it. Half joking there. We pulled onto Green Street. We pulled onto Green. We pulled up in front of the Louis Vuitton store, this magical juxtaposition of, LVMH and this hipster Brooklyn food truck pulling into Soho. And we opened the window and we put the counter out, and before we had even done that, there were like 30 people in line. So that was the moment, which was not success, but we said, okay, this works. we got something here. People are reacting to this. And today, 15 years later, I mean, it's muscle. That's the truth. Like selling ice cream, we've like muscled our way to where we are, and it's just hard work, but that's kind of it.
Fantastic. It's muscle. All right. Flex those muscles. So when you think about scaling your brand, you think about retail and you think about your retail strategy. I'd love to go down the line and ask the panelists to talk a little bit about what their retail strategy was at the beginning and what it's like today. Did you go to smaller retailers to start? Was that a move you'd made intentionally, or did it just happen? When did you go to the bigger retailers? When you were ready, or did you talk to a few of them just to build relationships? And then for those of you like Ben or a couple others that do a lot of bespoke programming with retailers, how do you think about that? How does that play into your business?
I guess I'll kick us off here. So, like I said, I started my brand about 4 years ago in my 500 square foot studio apartment in Long Island City, Queens. My first 10 doors I sold by myself, taking the New York City subway, taking Ubers, borrowing friends' cars. And a lot of that was, I didn't really know any better. And anytime I talked to a distributor, they would tell me, hey, come back when you have these accounts or these doors or this amount of sales. And so I was like, okay, we're just gonna have to go and do that. And so it was also great learning because I learned the ins and outs of how to sell into stores, like literally from the ground up. So I would show up, get an initial meeting with the buyer, deliver the product at about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, help them reset their shelves, do demos. And that was really the way that I built up my first 10 doors in New York City. Once we ended up growing into Whole Foods and other accounts, I will say that it's a little less of myself, but still very much myself and our team. We're literally doing the same exact thing. So I'll very much echo Ben's, learnings around, these businesses being built using pure muscle. Our teams, are still getting in there, getting into Whole Food stores. Now we're in, Sprouts, Target, and whatnot. We're still getting in at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, helping teams set their shelves for the day. And as we do that, that's how we're then able to barter for preferential placements, more facings, and that's how we build brand awareness, is actually much more in the stores. So in many ways for us, it really hasn't changed from door 1 to now we're in door about 3,500.
So at SkinnyDipped, we started seriously grassroots. So in our hometown of Seattle, we started by selling nuts out of the trunk of the car for cash or check to anyone that would buy them. So, every corner store, any little tiny grocery store we could find. And then the best part is that, so along with my mom as a co-founder, my 2 best friends joined us as co-founders. So there were 4 of us. And we used to show up and we would do demos in these little tiny corner stores every single day of the week until they pretty much asked us to never come back again. And so because of that, I think we learned so much in the early days about our product, about our customers, because we were out in front of it selling our product. And then next, I would say at SkinnyDipped, for better or worse, we seem to be a little bit backwards and upside down. We do things differently. So Target was one of our earliest partners. We presented to Target in hopes of getting 100 test stores. And the buyer came back. She flew, she told us, hey, can you fly out to Minneapolis? And we sat down and she said, do you have any supply chain problems? And I was like, oh, no, none at all. Meanwhile, we were making the product in a barn. So yes, we had supply chain problems, lots of them. And she said, okay, well, I'm taking you chain-wide in 12 weeks, all SKUs, all stores. And I was like, oh, amazing. And my mom and I were just fully sweating, And for us, that was a big turning point. We had to grow up. And don't let anyone tell you that you're going to fail. Use it as fuel to your fire, because when we found out that we were going chain-wide, everyone said to us, you're going to fail. You're done. No brand can launch in mass, chain-wide with zero brand awareness and succeed. And we became the top-selling brand. And so, for me, it was one of the many lessons in truly believing in what you're doing and never letting anyone tell you that you're going to fail.
At Tiny Organics, we're very much early in our retail journey. So we launched just before the pandemic, and as we all remember, it was a really tough time to get into retail at that point, and DTC was working really well, and it did for years. We've built a really strong DTC business, so we're now starting those retail conversations, and I would say the focus, especially if you have a product that is progressive, if you're creating a new category, it's finding the right buyer to talk to. We make baby food, but it's in the frozen aisle. It's something that's new to market. We get sent to the wrong buyers all the time and have to go back to find the right person. So if you can manage, it's really trying to, I'd recommend finding the right people who know how to support your product and know where to put it. If they could be users themselves or believers themselves, that has worked the best for us so far.
So we launched initially direct to consumer, and we focused 100% on that for 2 years. For a couple of reasons. Number one was we wanted to build enough of a brand that when we sat on retail shelves, there was consumer pull and it didn't just sit there. And two, we knew that the cereal aisle specifically is really competitive and dominated by mostly 3 big brands. And so we scaled the business all online for 2.5, 3 years. And then last year we went to our first retailer, which was Target. We launched nationwide in Target last year. And then January of this year, we launched into Walmart, Sprouts, Albertsons, and Kroger as well. And so now our business is more close to 50-50 online, offline.
So we're doing wholesale business. We also have ice cream shops. So that's where you go buy a scoop of ice cream. It's more than half of our business, and it's really fun. And when you're passionate about it, when you feel inspired, when you open a beautiful store in the right location, it is going to work. And you can kind of let your gut drive it. Wholesale business is completely different. So where we are today is probably a 15% ACV, 15 to 20,000 doors. Pretty good, right? Very small compared to Haagen-Dazs. But how do we get there? Truth is, it's not fun. I don't think that business is nearly as fun. It's really, really hard. It's not about inspiration. It's not about, I think it's even more so about muscle, but more so about connections, more so about building your team. So first 10 years of wholesale, I think we went from 0 to 4 or 5 million. So it was like nothing, like the wholesale business was teeny. And no amount of like passion or me thinking that if I met with the buyer of Safeway Pacific Northwest and talked about the pistachio, which I quickly learned, like that didn't do shit, So in short, we built a really good team, are continuing to lock a good supply chain. Man, I had something, it was supposed to be way better than this. But yeah, early on it was like apartment in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, freezer in the backyard, 10 tubs of ice cream, scooping them into little cups and driving around in like a Subaru from bodega to bodega and like Amish market being like, hey, do you want to buy this ice cream? Like when I look back, I'm like, God, we were so incredibly unsophisticated. And we had this belief, which was dead wrong. If you make a distinctly good product, that provides a memorable sensory experience, you will succeed. In wholesale, no way, particularly not in our category, because now it's super saturated, but even then it was, Haagen-Dazs, Ben & Jerry's, Ciao Bella was a little bit bigger, but not only did they like control the shelf space, like they own a lot of the freezers, or the distributors that they use own a lot of the freezers. So wholesale is just hard. You gotta like spend a lot of money building like a good team that knows what they're doing. Sky's the limit on what you can spend on marketing, right? That's a huge part of it. But it's not like you put Van Leeuwen on the shelf and because we're 18% butterfat, 8% egg yolks, and use truly the best ingredients on the market, it's going to sell. Whereas in the scoop shops, it does work like that. So in short, I shouldn't say this, I have no idea how to do wholesale. We're doing okay, but it is the most like mysterious, difficult, crazy thing. And it just doesn't come from the gut. And no, part of that is like, I mean, a banker told me yesterday, and he wants to obviously sell our wholesale business, which we're not trying to do, but he said the only way you can blow up the wholesale business is getting absorbed by, Mars, Frenary, Unilever, or the other one, Ferraro. And that's a little sad, but maybe we can, and I said, how big would we have to be to like really compete with them on supply chain and manufacturing? And we determined it was like $2 billion in CPG. So we're like, even if we merged every single ultra premium, meaningful player in the country, we're not even close.
That is a great segue as we think about the future of these brands and the business and the potential. I'd love each of you to think about, what is the future of your business from a growth lens? And then what motivates you today versus what motivated you when you first started the business? For some of you, like Ben, that's 15 years. For others of you, that's more like 2 to 3 years. And some of you are second-time, third-time entrepreneurs. So I'd love to end with that thought, and then we'll wrap the panel.
I started Sanzo, and I'll say like the motivation now was kind of the same as it was on day one, which was I truly believe Sanzo is the next global water brand, kind of full stop. I'm inspired by brands such as San Pellegrino, Perrier, Topo Chico, and specifically the impact that those brands have had on culture. They represent aspiration of a particular heritage or cultural background. And I started Sanzo because I felt like for too long that didn't exist within the world of Asian American culture. There wasn't a brand, at least in beverage, maybe I'd say for sure in beauty, but at least in beverage that did not give folks that level of desirability or just, I'll just say aspiration again. And so, that really was that still is very much the driving force. And then obviously we have these unique but also flavors that have very easy Western analogs. So, right now I'm drinking our pomelo flavor, which just launched nationwide at every Whole Foods. And it's, if you drink it, it will be very similar to a grapefruit because it actually is the ancestor to the modern day grapefruit. And there's a lot of these fruits that are kind of sitting 5 blocks away in Chinatown that have these deep cultural heritages that just had not yet been represented on both natural food stores, like the Whole Food shelves, but then we also just recently launched at every Safeway and Vons in the state of California. We're launching in every Stop and Shop 2 weeks from now, in the New York tri-state, and so that was and still is today like the biggest inspiration is seeing our cultures and our flavors represented on a truly global stage.
So for us, the next stage of growth is all about awareness. We're available in close to 30,000 stores now. We've been quietly building the last few years. We've been getting our supply chain right. I've learned many lessons about the importance of building the right team and that a team is truly a make it or break it. We have an amazing team. We are closing a last and final round of financing, with a bunch of amazing celebrity super fans that we had no idea we had, which is really cool. And we are ready to go, shout from the rooftops and tell everyone what we're about at SkinnyDipped and where they can find us. And we're really focused on just building the best brand that we can possibly build, a brand that makes people feel great about themselves, that they want to share with friends and family. And I think the other thing is just, the question was,
what motivates you?
What motivates me? So initially, what motivates me is that I believe to my core, I'm a builder. I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. In fact, I used to pick up rocks and like shine them with olive oil and then sell them to people on the street. Sorry about that. So for me, being an entrepreneur is just part of who I am. That motivation is absolutely still there. It's what gets me up in the morning every day. It's what it's the reminder to me after you put blood, sweat, and tears into what you're building. But that sense of kind of a need to build now for me is complemented by another motivating factor, which is that as a woman founder and CEO, it was not until I started building SkinnyDipped that I realized how much work we have to do in order for it to be an equal, a level playing field. And that is so real. I can't tell you the number of times I've walked into a manufacturer where they shake my CFO's hand and my head of ops hand and they skip me, or the number of times that you have to say something to be heard. And so for me, there's a much larger motivation, motivating factor, which is that I really do want to chip away at the very real glass ceiling and make the world and this, a little bit better for all the women that come after me.
Tiny Organics, our next phase of growth, is really channel diversification. It's getting our food into the hands of as many babies as we can. There's 90% of children in America don't have enough vegetables each day, and 50% of children are fed on WIC, on food stamps. And so we really want to be able to create a brand that is accessible to all. I have a 7-year-old sitting in the front row right now, and I want him to grow up with an adventurous palate and a positive relationship to food and how he eats it in his body, and want that for all children. So really, feels like we're doing meaningful work with what we're doing that helps me wake up in the morning.
Fit Check is pretty awesome too.
For us, it's really just about being the best healthy cereal for everyone, which that's also why we didn't start our retail path in Erewhon or Whole Foods. We started in Target and Walmart. So we want to get Magic Spoon in as many bowls as possible across the country, and doing that by doubling down on retail over the next couple of years, but staying very focused on cereal as our core product and not distracting ourselves with a platform of broader products. And in terms of motivations, I think, we personally think the cereal industry is sort of a microcosm of lots of things that are wrong in the food industry. It's a box of genetically modified, subsidized wheat and sugar marketed towards children. And so if we can flip that on its head and reimagine what cereal is, the next generation of consumers, and be the Kellogg's of our generation, that inspires and motivates us.
By the way, my co-founder, Laura, it happens too, and it pisses me off so much. Like, don't even shake her hand. Like, oh, I thought it was your assistant. Like, what the fuck? So Van Leeuwen, you've got the mission statement. You can see all that stuff on the website. In 1980, the average food spend in America was 80 cents grocery, 20 cents out of home. So out of home is restaurants, fast food. In 2020, it surpassed 50 cents out of home, right? So more than half of the food spend is now going to ice cream shops, full-service restaurants, Sweetgreens, more McDonald's. Is that good or bad? That's probably bad. People are eating less healthy, going out more, spending less time with their families, but it's good for us. So there's a huge opportunity. In that last 45 years, populations have condensed more in urban areas. The top 30% of earners, which is our market, have become more affluent. So in short, I'm saying that we want to open a lot of ice cream shops all over the country in markets where we couldn't have and wouldn't have opened even 20 years ago. So we see a huge opportunity there to probably get to 500 to 1,000 corporate-owned shops in the U.S., and it works, and it's a fun place for people to go. And if you haven't been to our shops, go in. It's good ice cream. It's a good vibe. It's like a nice alternative to a bar. And then the other part of that is continuing to grow the CPG business. And there's this synergy with both. The more shops we have in a market, the more our CPG sells. And then finally, it's licensing internationally. So even 5 years ago, I would have said no way on Europe. It's not expensive enough, but that's changed. Inflation sort of helped us a bit there. So France, parts of Germany, England, Spain, probably Israel. We're about to open our first internationals in Singapore, and then the rest of Asia, Gulf states. So we love the shop business, so more of those, more wholesale, and continuing to make the highest fat, highest calorie ice cream on the market because it makes you feel good, seriously.
Thank you. A round of applause for our panelists.